Hey there, Bible buddies. I've got a Bible writing implement review for you today. Now, I know that this topic has been beaten to death thoroughly with a wet noodle, but I kind of wanted to make a video of the stuff that I've used and tried over the years, and then kind of give my 2 cents. More as like something that I could just do like a quick post out there. If somebody asked in one of the Bible groups, like, hey, what writing instrument should I use? I could just kind of direct them this way for a kind of a quick and easy resource. Maybe not so quick. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get started here. I have a side column reference, NASB 02 printing, which is on French mill paper, which is typically considered like the very best paper that the Bible has ever been printed on. And this one is usually called the Judge. This particular edition doesn't have the calfskin leather. It has a genuine leather cover, so I affectionately call it the Attorney because it's not quite a Judge. I also have a Bearing Precious Seed wide margin here, and there's a huge difference in the paper quality between these two. This is much more of a very entry level kind of paper that they use in this edition, so it'll be interesting to kind of note the differences between the two. I also have a very thick kind of specialty paper for one edition up here, and then I have about as special as a paper as special can get, and I have actually like a synthetic paper, kind of a polyethylene, polyglycol, polyurethane, poly something paper. It's like a plastic paper. It's not a tree paper. So we'll take a look at kind of all the writing implements I used on each one, and then hopefully that'll help direct you guys if you're interested in marking your Bibles. So we'll go ahead and start with this SCR, and we'll take a look. For this one, this was like the very first Bible that I marked in. All I had was YouTube videos, funny enough, and then I had Amazon reviews, and that was kind of it. And that's all I really based it off of. And so I kind of went with the standard that everybody uses. I went with the Pigma Micron 005, and I use black pretty much. That's all I use. But these are very nice. These are archival ink, and they're alcohol-based, which means that if you get the page wet, the ink isn't going to bleed, because once the ink is in the page, it's in the page for good. And it also won't fade because it's archival. It's not going to damage the paper or anything like that. And these are very great. The only issue that I have with Pigma Microns is that the nib, which let me see if I can get it to there. The nib is like the little portion that actually writes, that little very tip of the thing there. The nibs on these are very extremely delicate. It's not quite like a ballpoint pen. It's almost like a plastic filament that they use, and it's pretty fragile. If you press too hard, you write too hard, or even after just a little while, basically what happens is the nib kind of gets sunken into the kind of that metal surround. So this is one example that I have where I did that, and you can see that the nib is almost non-existent on this one. And this particular one, I hadn't even been using that long, so I know that there's still plenty of ink in here. There's just no way for me to kind of get the ink out. The only thing I could probably do is this nib. You can actually pull out the silver piece, and the nib is attached. So I might be able to maybe like replace it if I have a pen that still has a good nib, but it ran out of ink. I guess I could do that. That would be one option. I do wish that Pigma Microns maybe had like made replaceable nibs, so you could swap them out for different sizes. That would be kind of neat. But otherwise, these are very good. They're just very fragile. You have to be very delicate and very gentle with them. Now, when I write with these, they do write so very finely that I can get about 12 lines per inch writing. So I do kind of write pretty small. And I will say too that the ink on these comes out very evenly. I never have any kind of blobbing. You don't have anything that's associated with like gel pens or with like ballpoint pens. It comes out very smooth. It's very smooth write. And like I said, it doesn't come out like blobby or uneven or anything like that. It comes out kind of exactly how you would expect it. The biggest problem really just being the pressure that you're using when you're writing with these. Now, as far as highlighting goes with these, I use these Mr.Pen Sleeks. And I'll leave links for all this stuff down below. So if you guys are interested, I mean, there's like one that I don't really recommend, but maybe I'll link it anyway just in case you're interested in it. But I'll leave links for everything down below in case you guys are interested in purchasing them. But I bought this off of Amazon. It was just a couple bucks, I think, for a whole set of these. I got like a big, huge one with all these different types of colors and things. And these are acid-free gel highlighters. So they're acid-free, so you don't have to worry about them damaging the page. But I think that most highlighters are actually, what are they? They're basic anyway. So I think most highlighters aren't going to damage paper. Because one of the tricks that you see on YouTube is like if you get a little bit of lemon juice, you can make highlighting disappear. The problem is that if you do that, you're adding acidity to the page. So like over time, that'll deteriorate the page. So I tried that once and it did work. It did like make the highlighting disappear. But then when I mixed a little bit of baking soda with a little bit of baking soda and some water, and I repainted it, the highlighting reappeared. So I was trying to neutralize the acidity because I didn't want it to burn the paper. and that made it reappear. So that trick kind of didn't really work unless you're okay with it burning your paper, I guess. But back to this. So these are kind of unique in that it's like a gel. I don't know how to explain it. It's very soft, and you kind of twist the cap there and kind of extend it out. But it's like a kind of a semi-soft gel, and it's not wet or anything. You can touch it, and you can see there, it did leave a little bit of highlighting on my finger, but it's not really wet. Like I can just wipe it off on my sleeve and it goes away. And it does kind of it doesn't really soak into paper. It kind of sits on top of the paper. And these are great because there's very, very little show through. I'll go ahead and pick up the Bible here right quick so you guys can see. So this is very excellent paper, but you can see some of the colors show through. These pinks are showing through pretty good, but really the yellows and the greens and the blues, not so much. They really don't show through at all. So maybe that might just be a kind of a point of note there. You might want to stay away from the pinks if the the show through is a concern to you. Otherwise, everything else will be fine. None of the other colors will show through. Now these were great, like I said, because they don't bleed. You're not going to get any how with a standard highlighter at the end of the line, you kind of get a blob and you have to try and wipe it before it dries so you don't get a really dark spot on the opposite side. You don't get that with these. The only thing you do get, I have noticed, the two kind of pitfalls of these is that, number one, if you highlight a whole bunch on the page, like I do, I highlight a lot, the page kind of gets a tacky feel. It almost gets sticky. Not sticky like honey or anything like that, but it kind of has a tackiness to it. And it has to dry and kind of have some time to, I guess, cure or set up or just dry out, I guess. And then after it dries, it's fine. It doesn't feel sticky anymore or anything like that, but it does take a little bit of time to kind of dry. Maybe a couple hours or days. I don't know. I guess it just depends how heavy-handed you are when you're highlighting. Now, the other thing I noticed too, and I'll show you here at the beginning of Genesis when I started, over time, I've noticed that the highlighting does tend to kind of get lighter. It tends to fade a little bit, not so super much, but I did notice it here and there. You can see this green is pretty light, and I don't know if maybe that was just me not putting enough kind of pigment down on the page, but it does seem like in some areas it did get a little bit lighter, and I don't know if that's just from the pages rubbing together ever so slightly that it rubs the pigment off or what. But it's not terrible. I mean, this highlighting is, oh goodness, probably 2 or 3 years old now, and it's still holding up fine. Now, I'm not sure if that's considered archival. It doesn't say that it's archival, just says that it's acid-free. So I don't know in 50 years, in 50 years, the Pigma Micron will still be there and it'll still look just like this, right? The Pigma Micron will. Now, these gel highlighters, I'm not sure at all. In 50 years, they might be completely gone. They might still be there looking fine. They might discolor. There's no way to tell because they're not marked as archival. And, again, only time will tell. So just an aside. We'll close this one up and move along. Now, I did want to show this. This is one of those super cheap rulers that you get in like kids' writing sets. And this is what I always use, and I love it because it's clear so you can see where you're going to highlight. It's just easy to use. I use it as a straight edge. It's lightweight. Pro tip, I also use this to tuck my ribbons. So if I got to tuck a ribbon, I don't know. Let me see if I can do it here. If you guys can kind of see it off corner there. But I'll fold it up like this and straighten it out. And this is so nerdy. But I'll fold it up and hold it here with this and then close the Bible if I want to tuck the ribbons for long-term storage, if I get done with the Bible or something like that. So these are super useful. I love these little clear rulers, and most of the time they're free with a kid's writing set, or they're just included in the price or whatever. But just an aside. Let's go ahead and get to this next one. And like I said, this is a Bearing Precious Seed wide margin, and this for this one, I didn't really care if it was archival safe ink, and I wanted to do more color coding. So I picked just an assortment. I know some people tend to get brand, what do you call that? Very brand specific with their pens, but I wanted to try a kind of a cross, a mix, right? Different pens. That's what I wanted to try. So I picked kind of one of each of the big ones, the big boys. So I'll go ahead and show you the pens, and then I guess I'll show you how they write. So this is a Pilot G2.38, and this one is excellent. I will say that the tip is very fine. It does go on smoothly. It does write fairly evenly, not always 100% evenly, but it is probably, I would say probably the second most even pen for me. But it's never really scratchy. Like I said, it's pretty smooth. And the blue to me looks nice. It's a nice, pretty color blue. And so far it's lasted well enough, I guess. And I like the fact that it's a clicky pen. That's me. So yeah, Pilot G2s, I definitely recommend them. for at least blue. I mean, I know they make other colors, but this has been a great pen for me. Now, the other pen that I'm using is a Sarasa by Zebra, Sarasa Clip, and this is a 0.4. And this particular one is red, and I really, really, really like this one. It writes smooth. It does not. I've never had an instance where it's kind of blobbed, where the gel's kind of come out and it's left like a fat spot or kind of a skinny spot. It's pretty even when it writes. And I do like it. It is pretty fine point there. And I'll show you here. I'll zoom in on the text so you guys can see a comparison between the two. But this one I really do like, and the red is like a decent color red. It's not super dark, but it's not super bright. It's kind of a good like middle of the road red. I like it. Now the other one that I'm using for black is this one. This is a Pilot Gtx C3. I can't recommend this one. I would definitely say purchase one of the other ones instead of this one. So this one is not as comfortable to write with as the other two because it's just a kind of a hard plastic housing there. And the tip is a little bit different. I mean, I'm assuming it's a ballpoint because that's what it said it was. But it's kind of different in its execution. And the black is nice. Let me see if I can find some notes. The black is nice, but you'll see that it gets very blobby. There's no consistency between the thickness of the marks. Like down here, it's very light, and then you can see a couple kind of thick spots, and then over here, it's thick and light and thick and light. So there's no real consistency with these Pilot Gtx C3s. So I would not recommend going with these for your Bible if you're very particular about your writing implements. I don't really mind so much. It does get aggravating sometimes. So I won't say that I'm not bothered by it, but it's not enough for me to stop using it. I bought them and they were kind of expensive, so I'm going to run with it. But do not buy these. They're non-recommend. As far as highlighting goes for this edition, I found this one. Now this one is not going to be super easy to find. I found like one store, somebody, I don't know, I think it was like a forum that I found, and somebody was recommending these. These are the Bible dry lighters. It says made in Korea, and it's by a company called Dickson's. And there is the information on it. If it'll zoom in, let me get a hand back there. So there's the UPC for it. And then it does have an item number of Mark 12, or maybe they want you to read Mark 12. I don't know. But yeah, so this is kind of a twistable end deal, and you can twist as much as you need. And it's all right. It's pretty decent. I'm not going to lie. The color's nice. It is a dry highlighter, so it's not like a wet ink. It's not going to soak through your paper. I did notice that the color's good. It's a nice kind of subdued yellow. I did notice, though, that in this particular print, and I think it's more of an issue with the print of this paper, or the quality of the print on this Bible than it is with this Bible dry highlighter. But I noticed that if I try to put a lot of pigment down on the text will start kind of blurring. It kind of works on the ink, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it like dissolves the ink or something. But you can see kind of there on the tip how it has a little bit of black on it. That's because, as I highlight with this, it kind of rubs off some of this ink and it'll blur it from time to time. Not always, not terribly, but it will do it. But again, I think that's just the quality of this print. If you guys were marking like a Cambridge or a nicer printed Bible, more nicely printed Bible, I would not expect that to happen. I think, again, it's just because of the quality of this print. This Bible from Bearing Precious Seed was only $50, and I think the majority of that budget went towards this nice cover. The paper and kind of the print is meh on this one. But again, I'm not super picky. I'm not like a paper Nazi or anything like that, so I'm not super picky on the paper and the print as long as it holds up well enough, and this is well enough for me. So, but yeah, I definitely recommend these. Now, again, these are going to be hard to find, so I would recommend if you can't find these, use Crayola Twistable crayons. These you should be able to find in like Walmart, and they're available online. Like I said, I'll post a link for them down below. But I think that these are made by the same exact company. I'll even pull a yellow one here. Come on, yellow. Come on, yellow. There we go. So I'll show you just the yellow and a yellow to compare. But they look to be exactly the same thing. So I'm assuming this company, probably the original Dickson's, I'm assuming Crayola must have approached them for like, hey, would you mind making us, a crayon version of this? And it seems to be the same exact thing. So you can see here the yellow on the Crayola is a little bit lighter. This one seems to be more of like a marigold or something like that. But the Crayola Twistables would definitely be a good go-to. I definitely recommend, especially if you can't find this brand Dickson's. And Dickson's is very limited in the colors they offer. I want to say it's just like maybe a green and a yellow. I don't think that they have many other colors than that, if there's even any available, because I haven't seen these around, or at least readily available for quite a while. I kind of found these on like some random online seller from like Ireland or something. So I don't know if you're going to be able to find these, but definitely the Crayola Twistables would be the way to go. And this is going to be kind of a nice option, and it does have a ton of kind of pigment there for you to use as needed, and you just kind of twist it as you need. and it's a great highlighter because it's a dry highlighter. It's not going to bleed through the page. You're not going to have any issues with it kind of marking anything you don't want. So definitely a great option. Put that guy back. Put this guy over here. And I think that's it for this one. Let me go ahead and zoom in so you guys can see. I'll show you real close on this. So you can see some of the notes I made there. And on the black here, let me show you the black. You guys can see like the word agreement there is real blobby, and then is and interesting is kind of a mix, half and half. But you can also see the paper here too. Now again, this is probably like some of the cheapest paper you could possibly do a wide margin with. So there's quite a bit of show through. There is no bleed through, which is nice, and I think that's because of the small size of the pen nibs helps aid that. You know, it's not putting down a ton of ink, so it helps that out. But definitely, if you're using like a journaling Bible or something like that with some nice thicker paper, you shouldn't have any problems with any of these writing implements. They're all spectacular. So let me go ahead and flip through. You can see here, you see the show through. So there is no show through. It really disappears there. So some excellent stuff there. All right, so we'll move on from there. Now, the next thing I wanted to show was this guy, and I've already done a review on him, so maybe I'll post a card up there if I remember. If not, you'll see it here. But this was like a little kind of a daily reader for Proverbs that I had. Now, this paper was super thick, so I could really use whatever I wanted. And all I wanted to do was really highlight the Proverbs that like stuck out to me or maybe applied to me, or at least to that moment when I was reading them. So you can see there how it turned out. And I will show you this one from the get-go. But so this one is a GTL by GT Luscombe Company. And this is the Bible Dry Highlighter. And it says, won't bleed through, ideal for Bibles. And it's the number 2600G for green, made in Japan. And then this one kind of is the same thing. It's a dry highlighter, so your fingers aren't going to get wet or anything like that when you touch it. And it's kind of just as much as you want to use. You can use it and then push it back in if you don't want to use it anymore. And it's kind of click, and you got a little pocket thing there. But this one is a non-recommend also. I do not recommend buying these. These, number one, are very expensive for what they are. I want to say this is like $4 or $6 for just one, which is pretty pricey. The other like negative to this is that this pigment is extremely light. Really very light. And it's very hard to highlight with it. Now, the paper in this little edition is very thick. So I was able to go to town. I could like really press hard and like color on it, go to town on it. And it was able to put down a decent amount of pigment. But you're really going to be fighting with this to get any kind of pigment on the page. And I'll show you what I use it in this one for is to mark kind of modern phrases, phrases that are in the King James Version that are still carried through today, just as something fun to do. But here you see the mark upon Cain, right? And it's pretty light. But then also what you'll notice, remember what I said with the yellow one, it tended to kind of blur the text. It definitely did it with this one. So I don't know if you guys can tell, but it definitely kind of like smudged the actual like print of the text. And that was a combination because of like whatever this is made of. Also for the fact that I had to press so hard to get any pigment on there. It did not want to comply. So this one, the Bible Dry Highlighter, I definitely would not recommend. I would 100 times over recommend Crayola Twistables or this one instead. This is just kind of blah. I mean, I guess if you happen to stumble upon these and they were like in a clearance bin for like 50 cents or $1, maybe, and only if you had like very thick paper to work with, because otherwise you're going to be pressing so hard. I mean, you might even risk like tearing the Bible paper if it's like a thinner page. I really wouldn't recommend them. It was kind of meh at best. And lastly, I have my bomb-proof Bible, which is another one I reviewed not too long ago. And I'll open this one up and you can see. Now, this one, this is not paper. This is weird. This is it's like a plastic material, a poly something or other, like a synthetic man-made material. And it's like a plastic. So this specific paper, like it won't tear, it won't rip. There's very little show through only because it's, it's not really like a paper. So you can see how little show through there is there. And this paper won't get damaged when it gets wet. You can spill coffee on it. You can drop it in the ocean. It actually floats in water. So it's a super like neat Bible, and it's a super cool idea. Now for this one, obviously special considerations had to be made for marking in it. And like all of those implements that I've gone through, not all of them, but like a majority of them I tried in here. And a majority of them like either wiped off with my dry thumb, or like once I got the paper a little bit wet, it just wiped right off with my thumb, or a little bit of abrasion, and it was gone. So I really had to try and test out a whole bunch of stuff. And this is kind of what I ended up with. But I guess let me get distracted right quick, like I always do. One thing that I would definitely recommend you guys doing in all of your Bibles when you're going to mark in them is do a test spot before you write in them. It's always weird to me when somebody sells a Bible, like in the Bible groups, and they're like, hey, I bought this Bible to write in, and I underlined like 3 random verses, and I decided it's not for me, so I'm reselling it. Like, why would you do that? Like, just do a test page in the back to see if, the show through is that bad. But here I did a little test page, right? And so I have like kind of the implements that I try to use, and I wrote them. I try to rub them away dry, and then I got them wet, and I try to rub them away wet, and then I kind of just use what held up the best. But since this is a synthetic paper, you can't really use anything and everything to mark in it because it'll wash away or wipe away. So what I found ended up working the best was just a yellow Sharpie. And this is just a normal kind of yellow Sharpie marker. It's nothing fancy. It's just one of the yellow options that they sell at Walmart, I would imagine. Again, I'll put links down below. But this worked very well for highlighting. It shows amazingly well. You can see. And then, weirdly, out of all the pens that I tried, because I write a lot in this one, out of all the pens that I tried, let me show you the show through too. Go over here. All right, so there's a little bit of show through that you can see. Out of all the pens that I tried, this cheap Papermate was the one that worked the best. And I think that this was just a pen that I got like at a hotel or something. It's mega cheap. It's just like the cheapest pen you can possibly find. I would imagine Walmart sells them, or really any office supply store sells them. These Papermate pens are probably like mega cheap. But this one, really, the ink, it dried quickly. It held up great to like abrasion. It held up great to getting wet and rubbing it. And it wrote fairly smoothly enough. There was a little bit of blobbiness, but not very much. This one really worked excellently on this paper, right, in quotes. Now, this specific company, Barton & Marcy, they actually suggest using this Bible Dry highlighter, which again, this was terrible. It almost left like no color on this page. And then as soon as you wiped it with your finger, it came right off. So no, I would not use that. Do not use that. They also recommended using a pencil. Do not use a pencil either. Pencil will come right off too. Pencil was like just with my finger and it came right off. So definitely I would recommend, if you're going to be marking in your waterproof Bible, using a Papermate or a Sharpie to highlight or underline or write notes or whatever you need to. Let me show real quick my test pages, just so you guys can see. And I don't really want to, maybe I will, I don't know. So I have a test page here at the bottom. And that's how I do it. I usually just write the name of the writing implement so you know what it is. And then, if I'm highlighting, I'll do it in black and then highlight it so you guys, so you can see. And then you just flip the page and take a look and see what it looks like on the other side there. And let me see. I don't know if I did a test strip in this big boy. I know I didn't do one in this little guy here. I didn't bother with that because I was just highlighting as I went. That paper was nice enough. I didn't really worry about it. And on this one, let's see. I might not have on this one. I did not, only because there's no like Bible paper. There's only one sheet, and this paper is good enough too to where I wasn't really worried about it. But as far as like marking themes and that sort of thing, I'll try and go through these really quick. So we'll take a look here. So this is what I ended up doing for this particular Bible. I change it for like literally every Bible that I do. I'm not one of those people who gets like latched on, like every single one of my Bibles has to be marked in this exact way. Otherwise I'm not like that. I just kind of, whatever strikes me, whatever mood kind of moves me, that's what I roll with. So in this one, I just have a little column here for interesting verses. And then I have a legend here. I always try and put the legend somewhere. I either put it here on like a separate piece of small paper that I include in the Bible, just to kind of refresh my memory as to what I'm writing. But I kind of color coded this, and you can see some of the color options here that are available with the Mr.Pen Sleeks, these guys. These are all the colors that it comes in, and I just kind of did a rubric here for like what the underlines mean, or if I do a little box around it or something like that. It just kind of tells you, and there's some more information there if you guys are interested in how I mark this one particular Bible, not even my Bibles, but this one particular Bible. So that was that one. I don't think I had much of a rubric for this one. Yeah. This is what's called a Cuddle Bible, and that was, what's his name, from S.A. Tabernacle, Brown. Oh, I don't remember his first, David Lee Brown. He coined that term, Cuddle Bible, and essentially it's just a Bible that you grab to make it easy to, like a Bible that you grab when you don't feel like doing a deep study. It's just something for like a quick, easy read. So I pretty much just highlight and then write whatever is interesting to me. So in the back, I wrote just some like interesting spots in the Bible. Just some interesting, like, quick references, I guess, resources. Like, if I was looking for something in specific, I could just go back here and try and find it. And again, I did have a little test spot there. So whatever verse was just interesting to me in the moment, I just kind of wrote it, So that sort of thing. So we'll go here. And then this last one. This one was a little bit different. So this one, my goal was to try and do like a much more in-depth study of the word. So it's a little weird what I did, I guess, in this one. So like I defined different types of like different branches of Christian theology. And then I have my little legend here that I ended up settling on. So like Jesus notes, who God is, general notes, commands, and big points. Then the resources that I use specifically for this Bible. Then I have like different various types of study, various terms of salvation. I have miscellaneous terms that are just defined things that I've kind of heard in passing. You can see here like all the blobbiness of that black pen. Really, don't buy that black pen. And my legend there at the bottom. And then I ended up doing just some interesting stuff here. What does the Bible say about us, right? And then just some other information. One thing that I do like, this is what God is, or some aspects of God. I really like that. Let me make sure I'm in frame. What God is, or who God is, some aspects of him. Let me see. I don't even know if that other one was in frame, so I'll show you guys again. This is a hot mess at the end of these reviews. But one thing that I really liked was logical fallacies. So I had this section here. This is all the logical fallacies. Every once in a while, you get into a discussion, I should say. I don't want to really call it an argument. We'll say a discussion with somebody who's a non-believer, and they try and apply like logic to things, or at least what they see as logic. And I find that a lot of times their arguments are very illogical. So what I did back here was I made a list of all the like kind of common logical fallacies, and I defined them. So in case somebody starts arguing from a certain perspective, say a false dilemma or a bandwagon fallacy, or if they're failing to provide the burden of proof, or they're using a straw man argument, something like that, I can call them on it and say, hey, your argument isn't as logical as you think it is, obviously in a loving and kind manner. I would do that, but just something interesting to put in the back of the Bible. I don't think that I have anything in the front of the Bible. Yeah, so let me wrap this up. This has been going long enough. If anybody is still watching, I appreciate it. Thank you. Otherwise, Bible buddies, any questions, comments, concerns, if you could please leave them down below. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that cool YouTube stuff. Bible buddies, until next time, bye.